안녕하세요. 강의 계획서에 나와 있는 드라이퍼스 교수님 대신에 제가 나타나서 당황하신 분이 계시지는 않을까 모르겠네요. 저는 교양학부장을 맡고 있는 안병진입니다. 제가 갑자기 뜬금없이 등장한 이유는 간단하게 이 드라이퍼스 교수님 강의에 대해서 간단한 안내를 좀 드리고 사라질까 해요. 그리고 나서 본격적으로 드라이퍼스 교수님의 강의를 좀 들으시고, 그리고 나서 이 강에서는 제가 또 간단하게 좀 해설도 해드리고 그럴까 합니다. 제가 교양학부장을 맡은 지는 얼마 안 됐는데 좀 하나하나 단계적으로 한꺼번에 다 고칠 수는 없어서 하나하나 좀 많이 고쳐 나가려고 해요. 그러나 쉽지는 않네요. 여러분이 많이 성원해 주시고 또 많이 또 제안도 해 주시고 해서 정말 세계적인 교양학부를 좀 만들어 봤으면 해요. 저희가 정말 세계적인 대학으로 간다라고 했을 때 가장 중요한 키워드로 삼고 있는 게 있습니다. 저희 학교에서 가장 중요한 키워드로 삼고 있는 게 미래대학. 조금 더 풀어서 얘기하면 대학다운 미래대학. 대학다운 미래대학. 그냥 미래대학이 아닙니다. 대학다운 미래대학. 그랬을 때 미래대학이라는 걸 강조하다 보니까 어쩌면 저희 학생들이나 저희 교수들 사이에 뭔가 미래지향적이어야 되고 남들보다 먼저 기술에서 앞서야 되고 그런 데 대한 어떤 강박관념 같은 게 있을지 모르겠어요. 그 대표적인 인간이 접니다. 저는 한국에 아이패드가 나왔을 때도 정말 제일 먼저 산 사람 중에 하나고, 더 거슬러 올라가자면 과거 전자수첩 나오던 시절, 삐삐 나오던 시절 또 제일 먼저 했던 사람 중에 하나죠. 저 같은 사람을 불러서 뭐라고 부르죠? 저 같은 사람을 흔히 그 용어로 뭐라 그러죠? Early Adopter 라고 부르는데 제 처는 동의하지 않습니다. 제 처는 단연코 동의하지 않죠. 제 처가 만든 용어가 있는데 칠판에다 쓰자니 좀 창피하고, Early Buyer. 남들보다 먼저 사는 사람. 왜냐면 아이패드를 사가지고 난 이제 샀어. 행복해. 그리고 소파에 이렇게 휙 던져버리거든, 제가. 그럼 딸애가 와가지고 아빠 이거 이제부터 내 거야. 이렇게 거의 패턴을 반복하다 보니까 제가 또 어디 출장 갔다가 공항에서 집에 오면 와이프가 의심스러운 눈빛으로 먼저 쳐다봅니다. 또 무슨 사고를 쳤나 이 인간이. 그런 어떤 강박관념 속에서 살아요. 한편으로 저는 그런 강박관념 속에서 살지만 동시에 저는 너무 기술에 매몰되는 걸 사실 싫어합니다. 제가 제일 싫어하는 광고 카피가 이런 카피입니다. 그 광고 자체를 싫어하는 건 아니고요. 그 카피가 왠지 싫습니다. 뭐냐면 기술이 인간을 자유롭게 하리라. 기술이 인간을 자유롭게 하리라. 과연 그럴까요? 과연 그럴까요? 오늘 이 수업은 바로 그에 대한 생각들을 한번 해보는 시간입니다. 제가 교양학부장을 맡고 나서 제일 역점에 두는 게, 제가 제일 싫어하는 게 객관식 시험입니다. 심지어는 윤리에 대한 과목을 객관식으로 보는 경우가 우리 학교에도 있고 다른 학교에도 있는 것 같은데 전 정말 그렇게 인생을 살고 싶지 않습니다. 우리가 21세기 훌륭한 인재가 되는 가장 핵심적인 길은 자기의 독립적 사고, 생각하는 힘, 비판하는 힘, 성찰하는 힘, 이겁니다. 교수의 생각을 따라가는 거, 이거 아닙니다. 그래서 제가 미국학과 교수 출신인데요. 한번 수업에 한번 장난치려고 중간고사 문제를 안병진 교수의 시각에 대해서 비판하라 그랬더니 우리 학생들이 다 뒤집어졌더라고요. 그때부터 쏟아지는 그 원성들. 그러나 저는 원성에 굴하지 않겠습니다. 바로 그게 교양의 힘입니다. 생각하는 힘. 이게 제일 중요합니다. 그래서 오늘 이 수업에서는 아예 발상을 뒤집어서 우리가 미래대학으로 간다. 그러나 글쎄, 그렇다고 해서 기술이라는 것을 어디까지 수용해야 되지? 어디까지를 과학적 시스템을 갖춰놔야 되지? 어디까지는 나의 생각으로 해야 되지? 한 발 더 나가면, 그래? 인간이 뭐지? 인간은 어떻게 활동하는 게 제대로 된 인간이지? 라는 다양한 생각에 나래를 펼치셨으면 좋겠어요. 물론 여러분들이 너무너무 바쁘신 건 알지만 인간이 무엇인가라는 질문을 잃어버리면 우리는 어떻게 돼요? 사는 대로 생각하게 됩니다. 정말 이것은 중요한 함의를 가지는 부분이니까 한번 생각해 보셨으면 좋겠고요. 그 점에서 예를 들어서요. 제가 좋아하는 제가 너무나도 친하고 좋아하는 시인이 있는데요. 제가 수업 때마다 강조하는 시인인데 박노해 시인을 참 좋아합니다. 우리가 80년도에 그야말로 대한민국을 뒤흔들었던 이 시인이 이 21세기에는 탁월한 사진가로 우리에게 나타났습니다. 탁월한 사진가로 나타났는데요. 제가 이 얘기를 왜 드리느냐. 오늘 드라이퍼스 교수님의 강의와도 관련된 생각거리를 던져주기 때문이죠. 이분이 뛰어난 사진가로서 등장했는데 그런데 이분의 사진기는 희한하게도 디카가 아니에요. 디카가. 왜 이분은 디카를 쓰지 않을까요? 한번 여러분이 생각해 보세요. 왜? Why? 여러분 스스로 한번 생각해 보세요. 왜 디카를 쓰지 않는가? 여러분은 어떤가? 여러분은 디카를 왜 쓰는가? 여러분은 혹은 디카를 쓰지 않는다면 왜 쓰지 않는가? 자, 제가 여기 제가 좋아해서 파일로 항상 간직하고 있는 박노해 시인의 인터뷰가 담긴 어떤 그 부분의 한 3-4줄만 읽어드릴게요. 한번 눈을 감고 자진 마시고 한번 생각을 해봅시다. 나는 디지털 카메라가 편할 텐데 필름 카메라를 고집한다. 사실 디지털이냐 아날로그냐 아직도 갈등 중이에요. 하지만 사진 작가들과 토론하면서 도구에 대한 철학이 점점 더 분명해지고 있습니다. 한계를 둬야겠다는, 너무 편해지지 말아야겠다는, 영혼의 교감이 달라요. 필름 카메라는 셔터를 함부로 누르게 되지 않죠. 줌도 안 돼 발로 다가가야 하고 그러다 보니 더 친해지고 그야말로 사랑하는 만큼 보이는 거지요. 어때요? 여러분의 철학과 같습니까? 다릅니까? 한번 본인의 철학과 비교해 보세요. 이분의 생각이 절대적으로 옳다는 얘기는 아닙니다. 디카를 다 버리시라는 얘기 아니에요. 다양한 생각의 나래를 펼쳐놓으시라는 얘기입니다. 바로 이 드라이퍼스 교수님이 사진을 했다면 박노해 시인과 같은 철학을 가지지 않았을까 저는 생각합니다. 드라이퍼스 교수님은 세계적 석학입니다. 세계적인 석학이에요. 현존하는 세계적인 석학이신데 우리 경희학원에서 몸과 문명이라고 하는 피스바 페스티벌을 위해서 특별히 모셨는데 이분이 정말 고맙게도 저희 스튜디오, 온라인 스튜디오에 오셔서 한번 영상을 촬영을 해주셨습니다. 정말 고맙게도요. 역시 석학들은 그런 점에서 관대하고 또 우리 그 사람들, 학생들과 소통하고자 하는 정신이 있으십니다. 이분은 버클리의 교수로서 뭐 이분의 얘기를 하자면 긴데 한마디로 인공지능? 그게 의미가 있어? 인공지능 연구에 강박관념을 가져야 될까? 이런 어떤 화두를 던지신 세계를 충격에 빠뜨리셨던 분이에요. 우리는 스티븐 스필버그의 감독의 영화나 이런 걸 통해서 AI, Artificial Intelligence라 그러죠. 인공지능을 너무나도 당연시하죠. 앞으로의 세상은 인공지능의 세상이죠. 그러나 드라이퍼스 같은 교수님이 계시기에 퀘스천 마크가 있는 겁니다. 그래? 왜? Why? Why라는 질문, Why를 던지시는 거죠. 인공지능? 인간의 모든 생각을 디지털 정보로 다 구성할 수 있어? 사실이라는 건 그 자체로 존재하지 않고 다양하게 해석하는 건데 인간의 해석, 다양한 그 사람들의 맥락, 심지어 사진 예술이 객관적인 겁니까? 사진을 찍으면 저 안병진이 찍는 사진과 제 딸 안수지가 찍는 사진이 같습니까? 아니죠. 저의 시각, 저의 프레임에 따라서 다르게 찍힙니다. 똑같은 사물을 찍더라도 100% 똑같을 수가 없죠. 해석되는 거예요. 해석되는 거. 무슨 말인지 아시겠습니까? 그런 어떤 질문을 던지신 이것은 한편으로 인간이란 무엇인가에 대한 질문입니다. 인공지능? 왜 우리가 이걸 해야 되지? 인간의 원래 존재는 뭔데? 왜 우리가 인공지능을 닮아가야 되지? 안 닮으면 안 돼? 어디까지 기술을 닮아가야 되지? 어디까지 닮지 말아야 되지? 라고 하는 그런 걸 던지시는, 뭐 이 얘기 하자면 사실 한 3시간 얘기해야 되는데, 이 얘기를 드리는 이유가 인공지능의 반기를 든 세계적 석학인데, 이분이 거기에 이어서 그 연장성산에서 원격 교육, 우리가 지금 하고 있는 원격 교육에 대해서 퀘스천 마크를 던지십니다. 원격 교육? 그게 제대로 된 교육이야? 그게 인간의 존재에 맞아? 라고 한번 여러분이 스스로 한번 생각해 보세요. 내가 원격 교육 받는 거, 그게 나의 인간을 제대로 발전시키는 걸까? 이런 거에 대한 생각 속에서 이 드라이퍼스 교수님의 강의에 임하셨으면 좋겠어요. 이 워낙 긴 강의인데 일부만 맛을 봐야 될 것 같아요. 일부 한 40분, 45분 정도만. 왜냐하면 너무 많은 내용들이라서 그 일부만. 대신에 제가 한 20, 30분 정도 이 강에서 해설을 해드릴게요. 간단하게라도. 근데 경고. MIT와 하버드와 버클리의 세계적인 석학의 강의는 공통점이 다 그런 건 아니지만 있습니다. 졸려요. 그냥 앉아가지고 교재를 읽듯이. 제가 미국 유학 시절에 그런 충격을 몇 번 맛봤습니다. 세계적 석학이라 해서 가슴을 뛰면서 그냥 그 앞에 앉아서 이제 받아 적으려고 했는데 이제 본인의 책을 그냥 쭉 읽으시더라고요. 그때의 그 실망감. 그래도 석학의 강의는 그저 그것을 듣고 있는 것만으로도 상상력의 나래를 펼칩니다. 그러니까 너무 지겨워하지 마시고 한번 집중해서 한번 들어보셨으면, 저희를 위해서 열심히 강의해 주신 세계적 석학 드라이퍼스 교수님에게 경의를 표하고 박수를 치면서 한번 강의를 임하셨으면 좋겠습니다. 자, 그러면 해설 시간에 다시 봬요. 감사합니다.
So I got two parts for my further comments, and one of them is going to be about the difficulties of distance learning, and my point there is going to be that somehow things mattering to us is important for us, our learning. And that means we've got to take risks and so forth. I'll go into it more detail. Without involvement and without bodily presence and without commitment and dangers, we can't acquire skills. So I'm going to give you a story about skill acquisition in a minute and how this fits, how this show. I want to try to show that you can't just become educated and skillful and masterful without having the limitations of having a body, and then furthermore, and it's really more what I'm interested in right now, because I already 10 years ago gave up on distance education, and I don't understand why it's coming back. It died once, and now it's somehow being revived. But what I'm really interested in, how what it is to have a sense of the reality of people and things, and how if you give up being in situations where you have to deal with things, cope with people, and take risks that come with that of succeeding and not succeeding, you'll lose your sense of reality altogether. That's the second part of what I want to talk about. Okay, so here we are with part one, which is, I call it How Far is Distance Learning from Education? And I think very far. But I wanted to start by a little bunch of facts that I collected, which is just to sort of show the people who are about to start spending a lot of money on this, and that it's just another mistake in a long series of mistakes of technology people who don't understand what goes on when people are being taught and are learning, promise things which doesn't happen. I would have thought that's exactly what has happened already with distance learning, but in a way that I just don't get. It's coming back strong. But here look at this list. In 1922, Edison predicted, quote, "The motion picture is destined to revolutionize our educational system, and in a few years it will supplement largely, if not entirely, the use of textbooks." That was happening when I was a kid in primary school. A little a little after 1922, but not all that much. And all the schools were getting their movie cameras and screens and sort of Discovery Channel-like pictures in black and white at that point, and we're going to somehow use them to replace textbooks. Of course, it didn't happen. And then 23 years after that, in 1945, the director of the Cleveland Public Schools said, "The time has come when a portable radio receiver will be as common in the classroom as the blackboard." Well, that didn't happen either. And then 40 years later, it seems about every 40 years, the famous psychologist Skinner, who sort of gave rise to behaviorism, and that's a whole other story, said he made teaching machines which were supposed to educate young kids by conditioning them. And he said, so these teaching machines were in the 50s and 60s, still a little before your time, but they were, and I never saw any sign of them, but they were around. And Skinner says, "I was soon saying, with the help of teaching machines and programmed instruction, students could learn twice as much in the same time and with the same effort as in the standard classroom." Of course, that didn't happen either. So now it's computers. And that started already about 30 years ago. And what started then was in the 80s was that there was a new technology which would make education altogether different and more efficient and in every way better. And it was supposed to be the power of the World Wide Web would make it possible for in the 21st century for each student to be able to stay at home and be taught by the great teachers from all over the world. That's the new dream. I just keep wanting to say, but it didn't work. It's not going to happen. But the need is for me to be able to show why it didn't work. That's what philosophers are supposed to be able to hope to understand. And from that, it's going to be clear why it didn't happen and why it won't happen, or else I'm going to be wrong, which is fine too. If you make predictions about things, you got to be prepared to take risks and recognize that if you're wrong, what that shows about what's wrong with your picture of the world. So we want to understand what goes on in classrooms, lecture halls, seminar rooms, and so forth, where any kind of skill is being taught by two human beings from kindergarten or even earlier on up to where you guys are, to graduate students and postdocs. They're all trying to get from being beginners to being experts, and we teachers are supposed to help them somehow. And so now, if you're going to, a lot of what the nonsense that people talk about education is because they don't think about what it is to acquire a skill and become an expert, and even to become a master at something. And so, since they don't think about it, they don't think about what's involved in it, and therefore they don't really see what's missing if you do it all by video, distance learning. So I'm going to give you 5 stages in which people go through to learn a skill. So and I'll give you examples from 3 areas so that you can sort of get what I'm getting at. So the first stage, somebody could write it on the blackboard. Can you write, is that possible? Or is that going to mess up? Okay? Would you write my skill story as I tell it? So the first stage is novice. And, okay, the novice learns by decomposing the task into, and under that you write features, context free, I'm going to there, but just call them features for the moment. And so context-free features that you can recognize, again, don't write this, but just what that means. A context-free feature is something that can be recognized by the learner without having any skill in that domain. So a beginner is given rules. This is in school life. This isn't how kids learn to deal with sand and water. But in school, people are given rules for dealing with things. So, but let's take not schools, because more sort of hands-on coping. So I'm going to give you an example in each case from driving, which is a body skill, a motor skill, from chess, which is a kind of intellectual skill, and one from education, which is what we're supposed to be applying this model to. So the student driver, and this is so you can recognize this, it's happened to you, I presume. The student driver learns to recognize domain-independent features, such as speed, as seen on the speedometer, and so forth, and given rules as what to do, that is, when to shift to second and how to do it, and so forth. And a rule like when the speedometer needle points at 10, shift from first to second. The novice chess player learns the numerical value of each type of piece, and of chess piece, and like a pawn is worth 1 and a castle is worth 5, and given a rule that whenever you can trade, you should trade to gain points, to gain what the chess people call material balance. So they have a rule: always exchange if the total value of the pieces captured exceeds the value of the pieces lost. And then they can get other rules too, but I'm not going to go. You don't want to go into them right here. Do things to get the center control, and you define what counts as center control, and then you make a kind of move that will increase it. So, and in chess, and that's that much for chess. What happened to the driving people? Oh yeah, the student, I just jumped. The student driver learns to, shift from first to second. I did that. I did both rules, right. So where are we then? With the classroom and lecture hall, the teacher supplies the facts and the rules that need to be learned in order for the student to begin to understand how to act in any particular domain. The student learns to recognize the features and follow the procedures by drill and practice in any domain. And so as long as the students don't have any understanding of the domain, because they're just beginners, you could have them. You don't need to have them in classrooms, and you don't need to have any teachers. That's a perfect place for computers. They can all do their drill and practice and learn their language or their subtraction or whatever level they're learning things. And in their own living room in front of their computer. But of course, this is not going to be satisfactory, because now we're in number 2. You get advanced beginners. Advanced beginners understand that with just rules and features, you can't perform very well. If your rule in driving is always shift when the speedometer points at 10 miles an hour, you will then get a result which is the car stalls if it's got a lot of equipment, if it's on a hill or if it's heavy. You can't just follow a rule. It doesn't work to always shift at 10 miles an hour. And in chess, you can see it too, those of you who play chess, the idea that you should always capture and make a move that you gain value, you gain material advantage, is wrong, because that you can get, if the other player makes a sacrifice, that means they lose material advantage, but they gain some superior position, then you'll lose to that. So what do? Well, you've got to learn better something or others. I can't call them rules, so let's call them principles. You can, and specifically, let's call it maxims. So what do you learn? A maxim means you learn something that tells you what to do, like a rule, except that you have to have experience to be able to do it. It isn't just responding to features. It's responding to aspects. With features, put rules, and with maxims, put aspects. Okay, it's better to give you an example. In driving, you get a new rule. Instead of shift when the speedometer points to 10 miles an hour, what you get is shift when the motor sounds like it's straining, shift down, and when the motor sounds like it's racing, shift up. That takes account of the situation. That will work. But that requires a lot of experience until you get used to what is a racing-like noise and what is a straining type noise in different situations, in different cars, in different speeds, and so forth. But when you get that, then you become a flexible driver, like an advanced beginner. So features are isolated from the environment. You don't have to have any experience to recognize them and respond to them. And then you get maxims which require learning, and they respond to the situation and the environment, and those are based on aspects like to motor sounds that's like it's straining. And chess, I'm not a good enough chess player to see these things, and most of the people I'm talking to are not going to be either. But there are people who see maxims like the king side is weak, and then they follow rules. No, sorry. They see aspects like the king side is weak, and then they follow a maxim like says, when the king side is weak, attack the king side. But all of that's already it's a somewhat sophisticated chess. And the yeah, and so you learn to attack a weak king side. Now, at school, this is where we want to talk about. Mere information, which is what I've been talking about, and so the student so far learns facts like 5 minus 2 is 3. Mere information is contextualized so that the student can begin to develop an understanding of meaning in the situation. The instructor takes on the role of coach. That's the new thing. You can put the coach up there. I wonder, let's see, yes, advanced beginners need coaches. You can just put that next, yeah. See, the people in the novice, you can just teach them by computer. You don't need coaches. That's why you can just, that's what drill and practice is. It's something that you just do over and over by yourself. But they need coaches. And what does that mean? That means the instructor who takes on the role of coach helps the student to pick out and recognize the relevant aspects and thereby make sense of the situation. Although aspects can be presented to passive students in front of their terminals, it's more effective for the student to attempt to use maxims, and then the instructor points out whether the aspects were well chosen for the current situation, or whether the student has got them wrong and failed, and that's how you learn the situationalness, which is required to have a skill. And that can take place at a distance or face-to-face, but it only gets you a certain distance because it's still a detached sort of thing you're doing. You don't need to be involved. You don't need even to care whether you win or anything. You just can see whether the situation requires a certain move, and then you can just do it. Why that's different is going to be clear next. The next one is competence. So this is when it gets interesting. There get to be so many features and maxims to take account of that you need to understand what's important in the situation, what's relevant. That's the new idea that comes in. You have to, otherwise the situation is just overwhelming. There are all these facts and so forth, and it's so nerve-wracking that the student can't even understand how anybody could do it. And it's true, nobody can do it. In order to cope with that kind of overload of information and achieve competence, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a perspective. You've got to understand the situation in such a way that you can see what's relevant and what's not relevant, and then you deal with what's relevant and you ignore what's not relevant. So under competence, you get relevance, and the student restricts themselves to the few out of this vast number of possibly relevant features and aspects, to just the important rules, features and aspects. And now it stops being detached, and that's a very important moment. You should draw a line across there. Yeah, and you could just sort of label the whole up there, all three, detached. Okay, so the competent performer seeks rules and reasons and procedures, so as to plan a perspective and to adapt. But such rules and features, now I'm going to make sure where I am. We're still in competence. Okay, so I got to think about this. We've got the rules and features, we've got competence, we want and relevance. We want that. Then that means, yes, to keep going, you have to decide what's relevant, but you don't have any information on which helpful to decide what's relevant. That's where we are now. So the competent performer would like to have rules and reasoning procedures to decide which plan to adapt, which perspective, what's relevant. That's all the same. But such rules aren't easy to come by, as the rules and maxims for the beginners and the advanced beginners are. In fact, there are many more situations than that can be named or defined, and so the learner can't be given a list of possible situations. We wonder if we should put situation up there. Probably 4, if anywhere. Yeah, let's put it. No, let's not put it anywhere for the time being. Any skilled performer encounters a vast number of situations differing from each other in subtle ways, and more situations than can ever be named, and so forth. And yet the students have to decide which situation, which plan, which perspective to adopt, what's going to count as relevant, or they can't go on. And that's when it gets interesting, because now there's a kind of involvement. There's an uncertainty about what to do, and that can be frightening or exhausting. Up to this point, if the rules don't work, it's not the performer's fault or their problem. Somebody's got to give them better rules, and that's true. And the same for maxims. But at this stage, the learner is responsible for choosing perspective, and that may turn out to be a wrong perspective, but if you don't choose a perspective, you can't get further. So we could put a perspective under, I don't know where to put it, under 3, I think. Put it under above the line there. Yeah. Well, so competence. Yes, we have to say choose a perspective. It's tricky. Why don't you erase that little line and move it? Okay, so now we're going to choose a perspective. Here we got examples. So a competent driver, let's say, leaving the freeway on an off-ramp curve, learns to pay attention to the speed of the car, but not whether to shift gears. After taking account of the speed and the surface conditions and how critical time is on this trip, he decides he's going too fast, let's say. Then he has to decide to let up his foot on the accelerator or remove his foot, and so forth and so forth. He's relieved if he gets through without going into a skid as he goes around the curve. And the chess player, who would now count as a Class A chess player, has to decide, after studying position, that his opponent has weakened his king side, for instance, and that the thing to do is to attack the king side, at which point he does. He gets rid of the pieces defending the king side. The question is whether it was okay to do that, or whether in the meantime he lost so many valuable pieces in doing it that he now loses. Sometimes he feels euphoric, that he feels did it right. he made the right decision about what was relevant and essential to do. Or sometimes he feels, my brother who's above Class A said at this stage you feel it in the pit of your stomach if you do it wrong and you fail. So what happens next? Well, since you care about winning if you're playing, you're an emotional kind of being and you understand success and failure, so the learner gets frightened and elated and disappointed and discouraged by the results and more emotionally involved in the task and more difficult to draw back and take a detached, up there, we said maxim following kind of view. And now the reason I went into all this was just to say that if you stick to being like a computer, if you stick to just doing those top detached things, you will never get further. And to get further means to become emotionally involved. And computers, or people who would never learn to play more than up at the top, would be playing like computers, just detachedly following maxims and rules, can never get to be even competent. They do get to be competent, but they just don't get any further yet. And computers can't really do anything. They can't be coaches because they don't understand the kind of anxiety and euphoria that needed. And what's needed to go further is to be involved. This idea of being involved is a human thing. Computers can't do it, and they really can't help people do it. It's just all in the human world. And it's very important because if people, because they've got bad teachers or because they're scared people, remain at this level of sort of detachment, they can never get past competence. One of my students who's a famous teacher now, a famous nurse who's taught nursing all over the world, has realized and described in one of her books, Patricia Benner's her name, that there are nurses who are so afraid of the possible results of doing things wrong, of choosing the wrong relevance, of choosing the technology and keeping the parents away at the crucial moment when a child is dying or something like that, or not chosen they make these terrible choices, or not choosing the technology but letting the parents in and then the child dies too. I mean, that's hard business being a competent nurse. And if they resist getting involved because it's so painful, they get stuck at that level because you can't. It's a fact about the way the brain works that you can't get any further than 3 without getting involved. If you try to understand it, you have to say something like this, that obviously the brain works in 2 ways. It can work in an analytic, detached way, and then it produces, at best, competent behavior, and that's sort of left hemisphere behavior. The right hemisphere, however, is holistic and does things in an entirely different way, and is totally sensitive to the situation. But you can only switch over to right hemisphere processing if you sort of put the analytical mind out of a job. And that's what something like Buddhism training, their kind of mastery does. That's what the famous book on inner tennis says. You got to quiet the analytical mind. And then, instead of being in what you stay, if you get stuck in 3, then you get stagnation and boredom and regression, and finally you leave. If you're a nurse, or anything else, that was a nurse example. How do students learn this? Well, they have to have the courage to choose relevance, to make decisions about the situation and accept the results, and they need models, so they imitate their teachers who are good at doing that. And if they are unfortunate enough to have a bad, scared teacher, then they're going to be in bad shape. And so having a body, back to that basic thing, means being able to be involved and have a mood. It also means being able to imitate other people. Now there's a lot of research on what's called mirror neurons. We've got neurons that enable us to when we see something being done by a person, we are just naturally led to do it. I think this is just fascinating. The only example that I can think of, because people don't know much about mirror neurons yet, but there's one case where it's clear that you imitate somebody, whether you know why or not, whether you want to or not, you just can't help it, and it goes from body to body. What is it? Genevieve is showing us what it is. It's yawning. I mean, mirror neurons are sort of like yawning neurons. When you see somebody do it, you can't help doing it. And you need to have teachers that you can imitate, that you don't choose to imitate, you can't help but imitate, who are already committed and involved. And now where am I here? So there are, I'm going to just skip to the classroom. It's obvious that in chess you've got to get involved to learn from your mistakes. It's obvious that in driving you've got to also take risks and learn from your mistakes. But let's stick to the classroom here. In the classroom, in the lecture hall, it's less dramatic than the risk in driving a car or losing an important game. But still there's the possibility of taking the risk of getting in classrooms now. What do you do? Well, in 4 you actually you choose a perspective. 3 and 4 are very tricky. Draw a line between them. In 4, instead of choosing a perspective, after you've been choosing a perspective a while, this is the important thing, the perspective just dawns on you. That to say, well, let's go to the off-ramp in the car. After you've gone through enough cases where you've decided to slow down and got honked at, where you decided to speed up and skidded, and all the better things in between, when you start going on the off-ramp, you just feel it in the seat of your pants that you're going too fast. It isn't something like choose a perspective. It's something like, really it's like a perspective chooses you. How are we going to put it? Get a perspective, find a perspective. See, that's all too much your thinking. Feel a perspective, let's say. That is, you feel what the situation is, like you're going too fast. And so you feel a perspective. Oh, I see, it's not competence, it's, we're going to call it proficiency. So when you get to be proficient, what is it to be proficient? Well, it's being able to feel directly that you're going too fast, or if you're in chess, you feel directly that the king side is calling on you to, so to speak, attack it. You don't have to decide to attack it. And when you get to that stage, you are proficient. Now let me catch up where I am. It's important, with students and professors, that they also have to get involved and be ready to do what? Well, they aren't going to have crashes and they aren't going to lose games, but they either make fools of themselves. The professor says things which turn out to be refuted by the students. That happens to me some of the time. Or the students are brave enough to come up with questions in the classroom, and either the professor will show or say, wow, you really understood it now, and the student will feel very proud, or this professor will have to say, I'm sorry, that's just a terrible mistake, but what I say, it's important to make terrible mistakes because that's how you learn to become finally a skilled expert. But in any case, you've got to risk making a fool of yourself, because that you can't tell for sure when you get pulled in by a particular choice of relevance, whether that's going to lead you to a great move or lead you to disaster. But what happens then? Well, the professor and the students are showing each other that they're brave enough to try to answer what's going on, and if they are involved and if they are brave enough to keep making choices, then the part of their brain that's able to respond to whole situations and successfully win takes over. And that's what it is to be proficient. So let's give an example. So when you're driving on an off-ramp, in being competent, you choose what speed to go. And you're just guessing, because nobody can give you an answer. They can't describe the situation in which you go this speed. You have to just sort of jump in and do it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's what it is to be competent. And then proficiency is just right after that. Then instead of you jumping in and choosing, you get drawn in, and that situation, so to speak, gets chosen for you. That's a big step forward. But that's not expert yet. Why not? Well, let's take if you go on the off-ramp, you can feel immediately in the seat of your pants that you're going too fast. But then you have to decide whether to take your foot off the gas or step on the gas or step on the brake and so forth. And when you do, then okay. So when you do, that you then have to figure out what response, like I just said, and that's the best you can do when you're being proficient. But if you do that often enough, you can put 5 up there. Well, under proficiency, you should be respond directly. Okay. And but that'll do. I mean, that means you just. But number 5 is. I don't want to spend too much time thinking about it. It's responding directly to the whole situation. Well, here's the distinction. The proficient person just feels the pull of that he's going too fast, but he has to figure out how to do it. We want to get rid of respond directly and say, back at number 4, respond roughly, let's say. I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time thinking about it. And then you respond directly to the specific situation. That's what it is to be an expert. And all of that I said is. I want to make sure that I've not lost it. That I want to get there. So we that's right. Okay, I'm just seeing. Yeah, that's right too. So the same thing in chess. We don't have to go in driving. You have a rough sense of what the issue is, and then you have to make a decision about what to do. But when you're an expert on an off-ramp, for instance, your foot just goes off the gas or onto the brake or whatever. You respond directly and successfully to the situation. That's what it's like to be an expert. And the same thing for chess. It's a fact that a chess grandmaster in a few seconds can make a grandmaster level move. They don't have to think at all, and it usually turns out to work. They don't have to decide what to do. They have an immediate, intuitive, successful response to the situation. And that means what? That their foot, they don't have to ask whether they're going to take their foot off the brake or put it off the gas or put it on the brake. Their foot just goes, what needs to be done simply is done. Now, I better skip a lot, because you're right. I want to, what's important is, all that's important about that whole story, and it's funny, this is a difficult job I've got. I wanted to say one thing, that if you don't have a body, you won't have emotions. And if you don't have emotions, you won't trigger that part of your brain which does this holistic, successful response to the particular situations. And you'll just be detached, because computers are always detached. As a former student of mine, John Hoagland, says, computers don't give a damn. That's one of the basic features of computers. So they won't have any emotions. They won't learn to respond directly to the situation. Moral of all this is that if you don't have a kind of educational system in which you have coaches is important, but more important still is involvement such that you can succeed or fail. And what's more important than that is even being able to learn to respond directly. And thanks to the emotions of succeeding and failing, you learn to manage finally to respond the right way to the particular situation. If my story is right, computers, because they don't have emotions and don't give a damn whether they win or lose at the game or the move, can't become experts. And if that's true, this is a disaster for the educational system. I had to tell that whole story just to say that computers won't be able, two things, I've only said one, they won't be able to get involved and therefore learn to be skillful if you're trying to teach computers, and they won't be able to demonstrate the way you get involved and the way you have to take risks and the way you have to take success and failure until your students just imitate you. They don't have mirror neurons, so, and they don't, and your mirror neurons can't sort of follow what they do because they're not doing the kind of things that people do, so you can't have skills. So what do we need? But put involved, embodied emotions starting at level 4, starting where that line is. Instead of detached, at the same, for the whole of the bottom one, is involved, embodied responses. Okay, that's supposed to show why so what is a teacher supposed to do? Well, what the teacher is supposed to do is incarnate, literally, embody what it is to become a masterful, involved, expert player or driver or whatever, and then the student can learn to do it, not by memorizing anything, but just by having their neurons in their right hemisphere tuned to the situation. Now let me see. I'm gonna stop a minute and catch up because I see that I spent a lot of time. Well, I'm going to go just say quickly the next thing. Beyond mastery, or beyond expert, there's something I'm calling mastery. And that's why people have to become apprentices. When they are postdocs and so forth, they're following, again, imitating the successful whatevers. And when they are when they're imitating the chess players or the drivers, or in this case later, the organic chemists or whatever it is that they're in the postdocs, they acquire from body to body, so to speak, that kind of knowledge. Okay, so, and therefore, distance learning is not going to be able to teach skills. That's the moral of all of that. And therefore, we have to give up, so to speak, on distance learning if we want to enable the students to acquire skills by way of involvement, which you won't have. So that's the kind of thing I want to say that you have to do if you're going to have a sensible view about this. There are teachers who are making speeches, I didn't read them, about how somehow being in a classroom with fellow students and with your teachers is crucial to a good education. And then there are those are usually the teachers in the teachers union. And I have quotes from one, but I don't have to read it. And then there are people who are saying, isn't it wonderful we're going to be able to make distance learning? These are administrators. We're going to save a whole lot of money. We're going to save a whole lot of classrooms. Finally, we will just sort of get rid of the university altogether, and just every student in front of their computer will acquire any skill anywhere in the universe. And if I want to come along and say, no, you can't do it, it won't work, there's something intrinsically intrinsically important about human beings who have skills. In order to have skills, they have bodies and have emotions. All that long story I told you was necessary to make that conclusion. And now I'm going to read my conclusion. At every stage of skill acquisition beyond the first three, involvement and mattering are essential. Like expert systems following rules and procedures, the immortal detached minds of futurists like Kurzweil would be at best competent. Only embodied human beings and involved human beings can become proficient and expert. So while they're teaching specific skills, teachers must also be incarnating and encouraging involvement. And learning through apprenticeship requires the bodily presence of masters and picking up the lifestyle that we share, I didn't have time to go into this, with others in the culture, requires the presence of our elders and imitating them. Period. I think time must be up.